This is Boomer Time, a proactive podcast for baby boomers, about baby boomers, and for people taking care of baby boomers. If that sounds like you, then you're in the right place. I'm Nancy Kogar, an elder law attorney and aging advocate, and this podcast was made just for you. Remember, though, the things we discuss here are not intended to be legal advice, and no attorney-client relationship is established by this podcast. Hi to you all, this is Nancy Kogar, and this is Boomer Time. I'm so glad you're here. This is an empowering place. So today we're going to talk about a confusing topic and hopefully clarify a few things. We're going to talk about the different types of elder care services that are out there. What are they? How are they different? How do you know which is best for your needs? And how do you pay for it? These are important questions, and I get them all the time. You are not alone. It is very confusing. There is going to be a lot of information in this episode, so just want to make sure that you either get a pen and paper and take some notes, or if you're not going to do that, maybe you're driving. I'm going to put a copy of this information on my website so you can go there and look at that. If you've missed something or you want to refer back to something, I'll also put some links in the show notes so that I'll give you some additional resources if you're looking for those. So strap yourself in. We're going to cover a lot of ground. So please know also that I plan to go back and address some of these areas more specifically in future episodes. This today is a macro view or a global perspective on senior care options. How do we pay for it? We will touch on that today, but I'm also going to talk more specifically about that in another episode too, because that is complicated. This is really complicated stuff. And I'm glad that you're spending time now versus later on in learning about this. So let me just say, don't get overwhelmed, okay? Let's take a deep breath because we're going to cover a lot of ground, like I said. So, senior care. That is the broad term used to describe a variety of specialized services and supports designed to assist elderly individuals, typically people over 65, with their medical and even their non-medical care needs. So senior care can incorporate at-home care, nursing home care, independent living, assisted living, memory care, skilled care, hospital care. Wow, that's a lot. It's critical to know that all of these things have their own criteria and their own evaluations that need to be done to see whether the patient is a good or appropriate fit for that level of care. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And, of course, all of these range in costs. For some of them, there is some financial help available if you are eligible. So we're going to talk about that too. But, others, most of them are just a pure out-of-pocket expense. And it's not inconsequential. So this is important stuff to pay attention to, really, because the federal government now anticipates that more than half of us over 65 are going to need some kind of long-term care at some point in their lives. That's part of the reason why we're doing this podcast. I've talked about the silver tsunami. That's the term that's given to the graying of America. We baby boomers are getting older. All of us are getting older. But in the coming years, more than half of our country's population is going to be over 65. That is going to change things here. And it may make it more complicated and difficult to get certain kinds of care. So that's why I want you to be able to know some of these things and have these resources available to you. Number one, okay, to be able to stay at home in your house where you are comfortable, where you have support and care you need to live your days out there? Most people want that. In fact, the AARP says nearly 90% of people 65 and up want that versus being in a nursing home. I don't blame you. That stay-at-home planning is called aging in place. You've probably heard that too. And that is the number one priority I look to when putting plans in place for my clients. I want them to be able to stay at home. But this requires a plan as you age. That's not today's focus, but it is something, again, I think everybody needs to take a look at and plan, and we're going to talk about that in another episode as well. This is complex stuff. Today, we are taking a look at the various types of community and institutionalized care that's available for aging people. These are the options typically that are available or you select from when you cannot stay at home and you cannot care for yourself. So in other words, you need extra help in a community where there are professional and consistent help available to help you. So that's kind of our magnifying glass or our eyeglasses of how we're going to look at this. And there's a lot to go through. So I'm going to take a break and then stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to start making our way through these options so you have a better idea of what they are and how they work. I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Nancy Kogar, and this is Boomer Time. Today, we're talking about senior care options. What are they? How do you find the best fit? And how much does it cost? And how do you pay for it? If you are going to look at these, there's a term that you need to familiarize yourself with, but we're going to talk about home health care first. That is something that of course, means you will stay at home, right? And may include some skilled nursing or home health aid services that are best suited to older individuals with shorter term medical needs. Let's say you're recovering from an illness or an injury, or you've got some chronic medical conditions and you want to receive care at home. So home health care is the term that you need to rely on. And this can include the following: wound care, patient and caregiver education, IV therapy, health monitoring, pain management, post-surgery care, like I said, speech, physical, or even occupational therapy, and mobility training. How do you pay for that? Well, most often, this is paid out of pocket if it's not otherwise covered by insurance. Now, I say this with a caveat. Medicare may cover some of these things. I've seen them cover physical therapy, occupational therapy, but there's usually a limit on that. Medicare is really more focused on hospital care. So there may be also some help for individuals with income limitations. And there may be some assistance available through Medicaid versus Medicare. Medicaid is governed through the different states. Each state handles their own program. So here in Tennessee, it's known as TennCare. This is an income and asset-based eligibility program. So you have to apply for it in order to determine whether you qualify. So in Tennessee, there are two options. They're known as Choices 1 or Choices 2. Choices 1 offers that at-home community-based services. Choices 2 is institutionalized care. So out of pocket, for this one, this is the biggest range. It can range anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 monthly, just depending on the level of care that you need. And I'm talking home health care here, okay? All right. And the other big term is custodial care, okay? Custodial care is a form of non-skilled care that's designed to help those who are able to continue living at home who require assistance with something called ADLs. Now, that's something I'll talk about in just a minute. This custodial care is a type of home care that's best suited for seniors who do not have significant medical care needs, or they're receiving medical care at a hospital, clinic, or doctor's office on an outpatient basis. Assistance with ADLs, that's something that can be part of custodial care. What is ADLs? This is a term that you need to become familiar with, okay? It stands for Activities of Daily Living, ADLs. And this is a criteria that they look at when they try to look at whether you would qualify for their type of services that they offer. ADLs are things like, can you feed yourself? Can you dress yourself? Can you bathe yourself? Can you walk without falling down? Can you toilet yourself? Those are ADLs. So depending on how you function with those can determine how significant your care is. Getting back to custodial care, so they can help with those ADLs at home. They can help with meal preparation, transportation, maybe to and from medical appointments, shopping, laundry. They can help you clean your house. They can help with medicine management. And, if you're alone, it can help with companionship and socialization, have somebody come in and spend some time with you. How do you pay for that? Well, there are a lot of private service companies that offer assistance with these type of needs, and they usually charge on a daily rate. So it is really wide ranging. I've seen everything from $60 an hour to, $300 a day. It just kind of depends on how much help you need. But there are a number of companies, so you can, shop around, in other words. So there's also care available for individuals who can remain at home with the help of a family caregiver, right? A lot of us are in that position. This is known as adult daycare. What is adult daycare? It is another senior care service that's available to elderly individuals who are, able to continue living at home but require some assistance or supervision during the day. Adult daycare is different than home care because they actually come and pick you up and take you to an adult daycare facility rather than leaving you in the home. This is also helpful if you have a caregiver at home that's helping, gives them a break, quite frankly. They can do some other things while you're spending some time at the adult daycare. Again, how do you pay for this? Well, I mentioned TennCare before, and there is some assistance available for these kinds of things based on eligibility, but otherwise, it's out of pocket. See a trend here? We're going to take a break. I'm going to start talking about more institutionalized care outside of your home, but I think we need a breather first, okay? So let's take a breather, and I'll be right back. Welcome back. We are talking senior care options. What are they? And how much does it cost? And how do you pay for it? Well, we talked about at-home care options, but what if you cannot remain at home? Then you're looking at institutionalized options or residential long-term options. And they can vary greatly as well. And they're still based on those ADLs that we talked about before. The need for these kind of services is really growing, and there are 5 different types of these services. So here's more information for you. They're known as the following, okay? We're going to go over these one by one. independent living communities, assisted living facilities, continuing care retirement communities, memory care, skilled care, and nursing home care. Wow. No wonder this is confusing, right? There's just so much here. But I'm hoping I can help to clarify some of that here. So first, independent living communities. What are they? Well, I kind of liken them to an apartment complex with support services. Independent living communities are typically the least expensive of all residential long-term elder care options, and they offer primarily for those support services social, recreational, and convenience-oriented services. So you might find yourself living in a private apartment or room with other 55 and up who share a dining room, hall, and community activities. These are typically just straight out-of-pocket expenses, and they can range anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 a month. How do you pay for that? You got to have the money to pay for it. There's no help available. Assisted living facilities. Assisted living is similar to independent living in that residents are allowed to maintain a level of privacy and independence while living with, a community of people similar in age and engaging in social and recreational opportunities. But assisted living facilities offer additional services that can accommodate seniors who need assistance with those ADLs. Remember, we talked about that. How do you pay for that? Again, assisted living is almost exclusively out of pocket. And again, it can range anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 or more. And these rates are always subject to change. I just see them going up. What about continuing care retirement communities? That's a mouthful. These are an option to the age in place at home. So instead of aging at home, essentially aging into this structured community, they'll start you out in one level of care and follow you through the stages as they increase over time. So you're in a community where you will remain for the rest of your life with the varying support in place. These kind of communities differ in terms of specific services that they offer at each level of care. But generally, they can include independent living, where you live in a house, a cottage, condominium, or apartment. And then when the need arises, you can move into an assisted living apartment, and then a nursing home or skilled nursing care. So they often also have designated memory care units for seniors suffering with dementia or other cognitive impairments, which is helpful if you have one spouse that's still independently living and then you have another spouse that's suffering with dementia and you want to stay together. How do you pay for this? Well, these communities are the most expensive option from a structured long-term care perspective. And they usually require a significant financial investment when you agree to become part of the community. And after you do that, it usually follows with monthly payments for whatever level of services you need at any given time. And you can, of course, expect those amounts to increase depending on the amount of care you need. Obviously, these type of communities are usually a best fit for individuals who have financial means. So what about memory care? Memory care is a form of residential long-term care designed to meet the particular needs of older individuals who suffer with dementia, Alzheimer's, any kind of cognitive impairment. Dementia is a broad term which can describe all kinds of different types of disorders. And it can vary greatly between patients. And, it's difficult to say one versus the other as far as how that person will decline and the needs that they have. It can vary greatly, unfortunately. The assistance with ADLs is there in a memory care unit. That's essentially helping you with eating, bathing, mobilizing, medicine management, all those types of things. So this is comparable in many ways to nursing home level care, but it's specific for individuals with cognitive or memory decline. How do you pay for that? I want to talk about nursing home care because these are really kind of similar. They're different entities, but they're similar. So, memory care, skilled care, and nursing home care. And they're all treated the same as far as how do you pay for it. So, hang with me just a second because nursing homes, of course, are the most significant of the options and provide both custodial and personal care and some basic healthcare services to seniors who cannot perform ADLs independently at all. Okay. This is significant need stuff. And they have additional needs beyond what can be provided at an assisted living facility. So if you're a fall risk, something like that, you may find that you're not going to qualify to be at an assisted living facility. And then they're going to, transition you to nursing home care or memory care or something like that. Unlike many other forms of residential long-term care, nursing homes typically have skilled nurses and aides on staff for 24 hours a day, and they're able to provide medical monitoring and administer medical care and treatment. As I mentioned, it's worth noting, although nursing home and skilled nursing facility or skilled care are used interchangeably, they're really not the same thing. Nursing homes provide ongoing care to long-term residents, where you see skilled nursing is usually more short-term if you're recovering from hospitalization or you've got occupational therapy, something like that, that they're working on getting you out of the facility. So, but it's treated the same as far as how you pay for it. So how do you pay for it? Both these types of care are very expensive, okay? Upwards of $300 to $400 a day. And that can calculate out to $10,000 to $12,000 a month and easily top $100,000 in a year. That can clean you out pretty quick. That's why you need a plan. So there's also some help available with this type of care if you qualify. And so that help customarily comes from Medicaid. I'm not talking Medicare, I'm talking Medicaid, which is administered by each state. And like I said, Tennessee is called TennCare. And there are some eligibility requirements that we've talked about. And I'm going to talk more specifically about that, as I've said in another episode, because it's very technical. And I just don't have the time to talk about that right now. The other piece of it that I think is important to talk about at a later date is the fact that if you get benefits through TennCare, they have a mandate to recover that money from you once you die. So that's why people often say they're going to take my house away, those types of things. That's not exactly true. They do have to recover, and in Tennessee, they are limited to recovering out of your probate estate. So, that's different in different places. Some states have what we call expanded recovery, and that means they've got a lot of other options available. But here, it's restricted to your probate estate. And they do need to try to recover money that's paid out to you on your behalf. Again, this is very complicated, and I will address this in another episode. And really, with the right planning, you can avoid all that. Planning, though. You see a common theme here? Okay. Respite, hospice, and palliative care. I want to touch on this. Of course, this is most often end-of-life care and the support available at that time. Respite care is for caregivers, of course, or spouses. Hospice care is the type of care that focuses on caring for patients that are nearing the end of their lives. It's not focused on curing, it's focused on comfort. Okay. At that point, you're really in the end stages of life. And hospice care is typically provided to those with a life expectancy of 6 months or less. It's actually kind of a more general guideline. You may be eligible if they make a determination that it would not be unreasonable to say that you might pass away in the next 6 months due to your condition. So sometimes people ask me, well, what happens if I don't pass away in 6 months? It doesn't matter, okay? But that's just the criteria they look at. And hospice is wonderful, okay? The primary purpose is to help patients pass away with dignity and help you remain comfortable, reducing that discomfort, the pain. They offer social services for your family. They offer spiritual support with pastors and so forth. And even hospice care also focuses on providing grief and loss counseling to the family members. How do you pay for that? Believe it or not, hospice care most often is offered by a nonprofit. That means it's free. Well, it's not really free, but you're provided it because someone else made a donation to help support hospice care. That's pretty incredible. And that is something that a lot of times when I have people come in and do estate planning, they may have had a spouse that benefited from hospice care, and they in turn make a donation through their estate plan for hospice care. And I think that's wonderful. But, I think it's something most people don't realize. Those are the 5 categories of senior care that are typically available to individuals as they age. So as I've said at the beginning, this is pretty complex stuff and varies greatly. The expense also varies greatly. And like I said, there's assistance available, but it depends on eligibility. And we're going to touch on that in future episodes, as I've said. But we've covered a lot of ground here, and hopefully I haven't wore out your ears. But I just want to take that macro view today and just talk about all these different kinds of services. And we'll start narrowing in on that and talk more specifically about some of these. So I do have these resources and additional links that will be on my website, nancykogar.com, so you can look there and find those. And if you like this podcast and you find it useful, do us a favor and share it with a friend and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcast so that you can stay connected with us. I sincerely appreciate that. Like I said, I'm doing this because I care. I want you to have these resources available to you. Too many people don't have a plan in place for their older years. Actually, half of all people have no plan in place at all. That is just unacceptable. So I hope to change your mind about the importance of that so that you can get it done for yourself and convince your loved ones to do the same. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Yeah, I have taken a little extra time because this is such a big, broad area that, usually where I talk about encouragement and prayer time, I've taken that time to be able to talk more about these specific things today. So I hope you don't mind. But I do also want to encourage you that, the key here is planning and knowledge, okay? So that you can make the right decision that works best for you and your loved ones. And then, that peace of mind is key. So we can do all that together. And that's why we're here, right? So remember that. And I appreciate you being with me today. So I look forward to talking more specifically about some of these things. And like I said, if you have a question, reach out. You can reach me at nancykogar.com. But in the meantime, I will say goodbye today, and I will see you next time. Okay? Hang in there. Bye.